Okay, so we have hit 2 minutes after two. So to be respectful of everybody's time, I'll go ahead and start. My name is Mary Jane Mudd. I'm the Executive Director of East Harris County Manufacturers Association, and I'm so pleased you're joining us today for this webinar. We're exploring in this webinar the strategic integration of cybersecurity and AI and how it's reshaping workforce productivity across petrochemical and oil and gas industries. We are so fortunate to have with us today two excellent speakers. First, we have Bill Gullidge, Senior Chem Products and Technology from the American Chemistry Council. And we have Chris Wolski, founder and CEO, Applied Security Convergence, and head of the Houston InfraGard Members Alliance. They'll be imparting their knowledge on this topic. So, to let you know, they're going to give presentations. After that, I'll ask a couple questions. But if you have questions, please write them into the chat box because we want to get to those as well. And this is your opportunity to ask two great experts on the topic. So I'm going to hand it over to Bill, and I believe we're going to be putting up the slide presentation for him, and about ready to roll.
There you go. Thank you very much, Mary Jane. And thank you to ECMA for inviting me to this webinar. It seems like every day now we have news about AI. And it's reached national, international news. It's affected every industry that I can think of, and it has certainly many pros and cons. I am with the American Chemistry Council. We are basically trade association for the chemicals industry nationwide. And I am in the group called the Chemical Products and Technology Division. And within that division, we have a group called the Chemical Information and Technology Center. And this is a group made up primarily of IT people, but we do deal with a lot of technology issues as well, which is where cybersecurity comes in. And part of that, we have a cybersecurity networking group. Let's go to the next slide. So I want to talk today, first of all, about our cybersecurity program. And so within this, you can see we have on this slide a number of ways we address it. First of all, we have a cybersecurity networking group, which is an information exchange group. And so this is a group that gets together a lot of IT folks, cyber folks, where we talk about technologies, we talk about intrusions, we talk about lessons learned, and we also talk about different policies that are maybe coming up or in place, whether those are national or international or even state-based. Those members in that group talk a lot about or exchange information on technology. And so it's one of our larger groups. We have over 80 people that are registered within the group right now. The second thing we have is what we call an NDA group, and this is people that sign non-disclosure agreements, and this is where we get into the details on attacks. Where are they coming from? Who's doing it? What lessons have been learned? What measures are being taken to remediate, if you will? And then we have a cyber policy networking group that really gets into policies that impact cybersecurity, policies that impact security, the intersection of cybersecurity and security, and a lot at the policy level. Point here is that AI implementation is a continuing discussion topic. It comes up in all of these groups, and it could be policies, it could be information, it could be technology, it could be any of that. Let's go to the next slide. So I'm going to talk about a number of policies that are primarily national, but I'm also going to spend some time with the states and Texas and give you some information regarding some various industry standards as well. Let's move to the next one. You can see them listed there. So I'm going to go through these one by one. Um, so this is the White House National Strategy, Cyber Strategy for America. It came out recently, earlier this year. There's really six elements of the cyber strategy that are encouraged. And so first of all, this is brand new. This is something we haven't seen before, but when this came out, it basically said we want to enable private sector offensive actions. And what do we mean by this? This is not AI specific policy, but it does contain AI elements. So most of the policies and cyber strategies that have been previously released under other administrations have focused on defensive actions, protecting your systems, remediation, that sort of thing. This one actually is saying that we want the government will actually help in the area of offensive actions if they think those are justified. And it's up to each company to decide what they want to do with that, or each entity. The second thing is basically, and this is an important one too, and this is a kind of a first as well, and that's that they want to streamline cyber regulations. And they want to, as part of that, reduce compliance burdens. An example of that is the CERCIA rule that came out in 2024 as a proposal where everybody was required, if you're in a critical infrastructure, everybody's required to report a cyber incident within 72 hours or a ransomware incident within 24 hours. That still has not been finalized, and we're still waiting to see what's going to happen with CISA and the regulations. I think everybody knows that they have no funding right now, so they're not doing anything. But anyway, the point is a goal to reduce compliance burden, but at the same time, keep liability protections in place for sharing cyber information. And this is an important one because some of the legislative proposals that have been floated around and holding up the funding have actually reduced the liability protection that's currently in place under the law. So, at least from our view, the chemical industry view, our position is that those liability protections need to be kept in place, and if anything, strengthened rather than reduced. Third thing here is, and this is AI, enable government to employ AI-powered solutions. And there's all kinds of projects underway in the federal government to employ AI solutions and AI technology. And, some agencies are far, far ahead of other agencies, so it's all over the board. Number four, secure critical infrastructure. The chemical sector is one of 16 sectors that are categorized as critical infrastructure. And again, this is assistance in hardening systems, supply chain, and also focusing on the supply chain. This is one that's come up in a number of policy areas now over the last few years. Don't just focus on yourself, but make sure that you're focusing on your supply chain and making sure they're not introducing intruding into your system, and make sure that they are protected if they're working with you. And then they also put in here to enable AI technology within the critical infrastructure. They want more use of it, so they're strongly encouraging it. It's a very general policy. It's not going to tell you what to do, but it is basically encouraging it. You can see number 5 here is getting into America first, if you will, very much in that language of the policy, with sustained superiority for critical emerging technologies. That means AI, and that means advanced AI security tools, whether they be generative or agentic or whatever they might be, also mentioned in the policy. And finally, a very strong focus on building the workforce. There's a recognition that there is a shortage of cybersecurity professionals. Certainly people also that have the background and the ability with AI. So they want to encourage entities to build talent and capacity in this particular area. Let's go to the next slide. So let me shift to states right now. I was looking the other day, and I actually was surprised to see that all 50 states have at least introduced AI-related legislation. And that surprised me. I didn't think it was all of them, but not all have passed, and it varies all across the board as to a coverage. And some are broader coverage than others. I think Texas is an example of one I would consider with fairly broad coverage. So let's talk about, since we're in Texas talking today, let's talk about Texas. Their policy encourages the responsible use of AI as a governance. Um, it actually prohibits AI intended for any kind of discrimination or constitutional rights violations or anything related to harmful behavior. It requires if there is some sort of claim on discrimination, it actually requires proof of an intent to discriminate rather than just an intentional act that may have resulted from the use of AI. So this is one where intent is definitely in the statute. It also includes a number of safe harbor protections that, in other words, entities won't be liable for certain things like discovering violations through internal testing. Let's say you do pen testing in your system. You're trying to see whether you may have some weaknesses, and you're able to get through. Well, if you're doing pen testing or red team testing or what do you want to call it, and you discover violations through that, you wouldn't be held liable under the state Texas AEI policy. Um, this is interesting. I felt this interesting that Texas said you must substantially comply with the NIST AI risk management framework. I'll get to that in just a second. But that's one state anyway that's adopted the NIST framework and has it as a key component of their policy. You have to comply with state guidelines, and if also, there's a requirement in there on third-party misuse of AI systems. In other words, if somebody is using AI and you experience an intrusion or whatever it may be, there is a defense available if a third party caused that. And so this is one that probably going to be a lot of court cases around eventually, but and I'm not a lawyer, so I can't give you a legal opinion on any of these, but you get the idea. Um, let's see here. Let's go to the next slide. I think that California would be an example of a more severe policy. That's one of the more famous examples. I know New York has one, Texas has one. Well, all 50 states, as I said, have introduced legislation, but I wanted to focus on Texas specifically. So there is a national AI policy from the White House, the executive branch, and so it basically is very broad. It just you can get the gist of it here. It what basically enables parents they want to enable parents to control what children are getting or not getting through AI, and it's a very broad policy statement. As I said, it doesn't tell you how to do that. It just says that we're not going to punish parents for trying to control what their kids are obtaining through AI. They want to strengthen the AI infrastructure, and they put in here while controlling electricity costs. This has to do with data centers and the impact on electricity costs that consumers are paying based on data centers. But certainly one of the policy goals is let's build more data centers, let's encourage the AI infrastructure, whatever that might be, but we want to control the electricity cost. They also talk in the policy about intellectual property rights, and they want to make sure that AI models can handle copyrighted material. This gets into an issue whether if an AI model is actually using copyrighted material, is that a violation of copyright law or not? And so the policy states that they don't believe it is, that if an AI model is using copyrighted material, it's all right to cite it and they're not violating the copyrights. We'll see what happens with that one. They want to prevent censorship and protect free speech. This is a key component of Senator Rand Paul. He's very much thinks that some of the existing policies dealing with cyber are actually invading on people on individual rights of people. So that'll be going on probably forever. I don't know. And then they want to what they call as regulatory sandboxes for AI applications. In other words, provide a safe haven for testing these systems. And so you don't have to worry about somebody coming after you later on if there's some unintended consequences in a sort of a test situation and a product development situation. So that's what that's really all about. And then they want to study the impact of AI on workers and worker job losses and provide technical assistance where needed. And so we'll see how that goes as well. And finally, just developing a policy framework and preempting some of these state AI laws that are so diverse. And if there's 50 of them, that makes it very difficult for corporations to do business and follow in all 50 states and to relate it to AI or the use of AI or whatever it might be. So there is a theme here to try to make sure that there's not too much diversity and everybody's having to scramble. Let's go to the next slide. So real quick on the NIST AI risk management framework, it was mentioned in the Texas policy, and it's basically designed to increase trust in AI. And there's four basic functions: govern, map, measure, manage. If that looks familiar, it's based on the NIST cyber framework, quite frankly. And you can see under each of these steps, you want to manage the risks in an AI system, try to identify them. You want to map them out. What are the beneficial uses? What are your expectations in the system? What it's going to be used for? And you want to make sure you document that. You want to measure in the sense of applying appropriate methods, metrics, what's successful, what's not from the mapping step. And certainly you want to make sure that you have some measure or some way to evaluate safety risks. And then finally, managing, prioritizing risks and planned or implement strategies to maximize the benefits and minimize negatives, including third parties. And that's in their policy as well. Again, focusing on not only you, but the third party as well. So I was going to mention a couple of other things in the policy area real quick. One is CISA, the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, and they have put out a document late last year dealing with principles for integrating artificial intelligence and operational technology. I think Chris is going to talk about that in more detail, so I'm going to skip over it. The other things I wanted to mention are just today, a document came out from a wide group of CISOs on AI vulnerability. It's called the AI Vulnerability Storm, building Mythos-ready security program. And as I said, it just came out today. I scanned it. It's got a number of collaborators, if you will, CISOs from all types of industries. Very broad acceptance, looks like. But it really talks about the fact that what I like about this, it talks about the fact that AI attacks, using AI to attack your system, the technologies associated with that, the new vulnerabilities that are being exploited, they're moving faster than the speed of actually patching up the systems. And in other words, defending yourself. The offensive capability is moving faster than the defensive capability. So that's certainly a risk that has to be considered in the future. And finally, let's go to the next slide. So I wanted to talk a little bit about chemical sector implementation of AI, sort of tying all this together. It's very company specific, I think, and very companies are all over the place. Some are just evaluating different systems. Some have actually decided on AI technology and what they're going to use. Some have built their own systems. In a couple of instances that I'm aware of, where they're being used for IT and looking at whether they're going to be used for OT. I think most of the stuff that I've seen have been more IT based as a start rather than OT based, but certainly it's being used more in the OT environment. Situations that I've seen is for maintenance type purposes where they're predicting the failure rate of a particular piece of equipment or what failure mode that might come up. But in every case that I'm aware of, which makes us a little different from Japan, they have not turned everything over to AI. Y'all may have seen, and there was an article that I saw, and there's a couple of plants in Japan that are being run entirely with AI technology. There's no people involved at all, and they're just running and running and running and running, and they haven't had any problems so far. I think it's been going on for about 6 months, but interesting. Are we at that point where we're not going to have humans overseeing this or not? And I think the answer is for the most part, nobody's ready to go that far yet. There has to be some human influence because anytime you use AI, whether it's, ChatGPT or whatever you're going to use, you've got to correct errors, at least in what I've seen. And so we're not there. We're just going to totally leave it alone. But some other things that are affecting the implementation, there's regulatory and regional influences. You got laws all over and regions around the world, quite frankly, that have different perspectives on AI. And if you're operating in those systems, you've got to take that into account. Big one is legacy systems. How do you handle the stuff that's 20 and 30 years old, was not made for AI, was not really made for cyber, quite frankly, in some cases? So it's all about risk management. I think the biggest thing to do is make sure you have an inventory of the systems, all your systems, and know what they can and can't do, and whether they are amenable to any kind of AI or not, and act accordingly. We've had a lot of discussion in our group about governance and risk management on AI. And I know a number of the companies are actually putting in governance procedures and developing their own policies. And at the same time, some are looking at further applications from in the OT areas and the IT area. So risk management is fairly important. And then finally, advanced intrusion techniques. This is getting to what I said a minute ago, where the offense is sort of beating the defense. I think all the companies that I've talked to are very worried about this, and they really are working on improving. And I think there's been a lot of progress made in improving the defensive reaction time, and stopping intrusion techniques that are designed. It happens every day. We have in the chemical industry, companies are probed every single day. Somebody's trying to get in for some reason. I think we've mostly had very good luck and very good success at stopping these intrusions. But AI is certainly is going to lead to, it can move quicker, it can move faster, it can make decisions on its own, and people that are going to misuse AI for that purpose, certainly are going to have. At least I think they're going to have an initial advantage, but we'll see. We'll see what's that. With that, I think I'm out of time. I'd be glad to answer any questions afterwards, and however we're going to do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now, Chris.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Chris Walski. As Mary Jane mentioned, I am the founder of Applied Security Convergence, and a little correction, I lead the Maritime Cross-Sector Security Council for the InfraGard. My good friend Marco Ayala runs the whole thing here in Houston, so I don't want to take away from him. I am also a professor at Texas A&M University. I teach at the School of Law up in Dallas, and I also teach the Maritime Administration program here in Galveston. Um, so my presentations to AI or not to AI. It's about really coming down to protecting the infrastructure. A little bit about what I do as far as the business goes is that we are providing consulting services on security related issues to oil and gas, to the maritime industry, as well as chemical manufacturers. So we do have a little bit of background in the manufacturing processes. Next slide. So where is AI being used? As Bill's mentioned, you're sitting there, you get it's being more and more involved in what the business is doing. What's really driving this is the business need, usually from executive level down, saying we need more information. We want to know what's happening, and sometimes that data has to come all the way up from the plant floor. And so what we're seeing now is we're seeing a lot of integration with the operational technology down at the lower levels, at the 0 and 3 level of the Purdue model. If you're not familiar with the Purdue model, it's basically a prescribed uh, configuration, if you will, for cybersecurity and operational technology. And you build out different levels, and each level has its own type of equipment and different security protocols. So low and or 0 and 3 levels, those areas, those are areas that you're actually down to the sensors, you're down to the programmable controllers and the human machine interfaces where those things that are actually touched and managing and monitoring are actually what's controlling the processes. Then you have the areas like 4 and 5 of the Purdue model that talk about the business side of it. That's where the data all ends up, and that's where you have business analysts looking over the data, trying to figure out what's happening with the data. And the problem is there's so much data, and that's where the artificial intelligence is coming in. They're applying things like machine learning, they're applying the large language model, and even now getting down to what's called agentic AI. And that is where, you know, Bill was talking about in Japan. That's what's happening. You have agents that are acting on AI and doing things for whatever, right? For whatever's going on in the physical world or making calculations, etc. So, next slide. So what you're looking at is the, like I said, the different levels within AI. So at the rudimentary, very fundamental levels, OT is providing the data. And it could be about volume, it could be about pressure, it could be about temperature, it could be counts, it could be a lot of different things that could be being monitored at the level 0 OT data source. All that is in some way being controlled locally. And at the level 1, that's where you have the devices like your human machine interfaces, where you have people monitoring and managing. And you have those capabilities in place to sit there and make interruptions to something, to the process, to modify it. And that is also where AI is starting to be looked at, is because now it has the ability to sit there and respond to something, an event or an incident, safety issue much sooner than if there was a human involved. And then quality control, level 2, where you have the lot of the information coming up to a system where somebody's in there managing and monitoring it. And it's the same thing with level 1. You have that local control and you have the quality control. You have now the potential for AI being able to be involved to perform some of those functions. And level 3, predictive maintenance and supporting operator decision making. So we at that level, you're sitting there and you have somebody sitting in a control room, monitoring what's happening and providing them with the information so that they can make a human-based decision based off of information that AI has gathered together and presented it to the operator. And then again, as I mentioned previously, levels 4 and 5, that's where really business comes in and the Purdue model. That's where the business analysts come in. That's where the executives are coming in, and they're making decisions based on all of the information that comes from the lower levels. Next slide. So what are the risks? Well, we're dealing with operational technology. So failures within operational technology, we know that they have physical consequences. We have the potential for people being hurt. We have environmental damage. Worst thing that could happen is, like somebody's life lost. But on top of it, the organization, when there's a failure within a process, typically it means the organization's no longer making money, right? So there's a commercial going around on the radio now, and it basically starts out, it has the sounds of an operations floor, and it's really noisy and loud. And the guy goes, the worst sound in the world to hear is when your operation shut down, you hear nothing. It's silence. And that could potentially happen. You could have a shut-in based on an AI decision that could impact your production. AI, in order for it to work, has to have really high bandwidth. It has to have a lot of systems in place that you have high availability. You don't want to have something in place where you just have one computer and that one computer breaks, then you have a problem where if you're depending on AI to make some sort of decision or to perform some machine learning and it's gone, you're really going to be in a position of high risk. And then, just like Bill mentioned, legacy operational technology was never ever designed for this, right? It was solely designed to do things, and it's one of the courses I teach it. I call operational technology the muscle of IT, right? It is how things get done. And so uh, without the controls in place, what legacy OT brings in, adding AI into it, you may end up breaking that system. Go ahead, next slide. So, what are some of the cybersecurity vulnerabilities? Well, we have adversarial attacks. You have those organizations, criminal, whatnot, nation state, they're intent on disrupting. And so their disruption brings down a facility, brings down critical infrastructure component of the country. Could be a potential significant impact. Data poisoning, injecting incorrect information so that what goes in, what's the saying? Garbage goes in, garbage comes out. Kind of um, watered that down a little bit, but that's exactly the kind of thing that can happen with AI and cybersecurity. Prompt injection, where you can actually cause AI systems to dump information that they're not supposed to be exposing. Um, Example is here a few back in December, I was working on a project with one of my students, and we were doing research on incidents, cyber incidents, and let's jump on ChatGPT, and we did a real quick search of recent maritime cybersecurity incidents, and there's one company that came up that was listed there, and we asked for more information, and that information was not publicly available anywhere. So how did it get exposed? How did that Chat GPT product end up with this information? you know the human in the loop where they're taking data and pushing it up into the model, and the model, that large language model, sitting there holds on to it. And so we could go back as an attacker and exploit those weaknesses where people are sending information that could be sensitive, and we're able to pull that down if we have the right prompts in place. Increased attack surface. Again, we're putting more and more information up into the cloud, more and more information into AI. So what goes into AI, just like what goes on the internet now, what they say about goes on the internet stays on the internet. It's the same thing with AI. It's very, very difficult to get information deleted out of AI. It's a large language model. It's a database. It's bringing all this information in and it's scanning the interweb to be able to find all of this information that it's using to provide you with the answer. And then supply chain risks. How can we protect against um, foreign or criminal input into systems that we don't typically physically have control over? We're depending on third parties to maintain cybersecurity and to prevent the criminals in foreign nations from being able to get in and taking control or poisoning the systems themselves. Next slide. So with OT, now we got to think about operational and safety reliability. Um, we've all heard about the hallucinations that AI can have. It can happen no matter what your data source, even if it's your OT data, and it's nothing but numbers and it's just performing machine learning. It can have hallucinations. Your model can drift, and you can start seeing variations of information that you may not have seen before. And the other thing with this is when you put the data in, what's really happened to the data? It's a black box, right? It just the data goes in, and magically data comes out the other side. And hopefully it's something that you were looking for, but we don't know what happened inside the box. And that's where a lot of things are going on right now when you're dealing with AI, whether it's agentic AI, whether it is your large language models, or even your machine learning. What is happening to the data while it's being crunched inside the system? Operationally, we work in a kind of a real time, I mean, extremely near real time environment. And if anybody's done any sort of chat GPT lookup or Grok or Claude, it takes a few seconds for it to sit there and crunch on data and provide you with information out. So that provides real integration challenges of how you sit there and have something that's providing, or you expecting to provide real time or near real time output on a consistent, regular basis, and so that you can make as a human the information to make the choices or decisions that need to be made, or even for the computers operating at the speed of light to make them. And then operator and dependency risks. With all the data coming out, no, and you have people that have not seen what the data is like before AI went in, right? All they know is what the AI data tells them. They don't know what the real ground truth is of how that system may be operating, what's coming out, if it's valid or if it's wrong, or if it's been impacted in any way. Next slide. So best practices, again, real good source of information that Bill brought up is the CISA document, the Principles for Secure Integration of Artificial Intelligence and Operational Technology, and the website listed right down there. But basically what CISA has said, there's four core principles necessary to secure AI. And one is to understand it. Two, to consider AI use in operational technology. Three, establish the governance and assurance program to oversee it. And then embed oversight and fail safes. All right. So go ahead and next slide. So recommendations, again, go in there, governance and human oversight, develop the policies, looking at what Bill had put out, the NIST documents, the state requirements, federal government requirements, your industry requirements. For example, Coast Guard has requirements, and making sure that everything is within within those regulations, regulatory or guidelines that you're supposed to have. AI life cycle security and testing. Like technology, AI is not staying still. It is constantly changing. So, and it actually changes so much faster than technology that you have to sit there and take into consideration the life cycle and the security, because as things change with AI, the security level changes, and then testing for that. Finally, your vendor, next we have vendor and ecosystem management. Really taking control of your third parties. How are they using your data? whether they are the processor or they are taking actual data that you provide them and doing something with it. How is it being utilized? Take a look at your secure architecture and integration with operational technology. Again, the Purdue model is all about having a secure architecture, and you don't want to inadvertently introduce vulnerabilities and weaknesses into your environment by bringing in AI and putting it into your operational technology world. And then finally, monitor, 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 train, 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 so you can stay compliant. All these items right here are just practical recommendations, and they're all covered more in detail within what CISA has put out in that document. Next slide. So that is all I have. Thank you, Mary Jane and ECMA, for allowing me to speak today. Appreciate the opportunity.
Wow, that was a lot in a short period of time, and it's such a vast emerging world. And until today, I'd never heard of AI hallucinations. It's probably going to give me nightmares tonight. But instead of hopping into my questions, which I'll do in a moment, you touched on a lot of what I had. I may be a little more philosophical when I get to those, but we do have a question in our chat box, and I want to remind our listeners or viewers to please do write some questions in there. This is a great opportunity to ask subject matter experts about cybersecurity and AI. But one question we have is this: can AI audit itself to ensure it's providing reliable information? So either one of you can take that. I do see Chris smiling. Um, which
Yeah,
one?
this is fun because there's actually been instances like AI auditing itself, stopping a process. The process is like, heck no, I'm going to keep on going. And then the AI agents are actually fighting themselves. So yeah, I mean, it's not anywhere near mature enough right now to sit there and totally depend on it. But I mean, Bill, what do you think?
I wouldn't trust it. I agree. No, I mean,
They might be
it may
hallucinating.
try, but I'm not sure I would trust the result. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. You clearly touched on the various risks about legacy plants adopting uh, AI. Philosophically, what would you say to chemical company managers about balancing innovation? Because we have to consistently innovate. How do they balance that with the risk management when integrating AI into those legacy sites? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's tough.
Yeah.
It's real tough. I think Um, I know that a number of sites, number of companies are working with their vendors, their equipment vendors, in terms of first of all, we went through this in phases. Maybe I guess the first phase was cybersecurity and just trying to what's adaptable to patch up and install cyber protection on some of these systems and what's not. It's just not technology is not going to be that compatible. I think we're going through the same thing now with AI is, how AI can be used to identify weaknesses, how it can be used to identify efficiencies. Um, and as I said, I think it's being used in the maintenance area, especially at the OT level, where you have cyber protection, or you have these systems isolated, and you've got they're not internet facing, and and maybe I know I'm rambling a little bit because I'm thinking about some model projects that I'm aware of. There's some projects over in Europe and even some applications in the U.S. where they're really testing AI more than anything else. They're not going to let it run a plant, but they're really testing it to see how efficient it can be. Can it save them, money? Can it save them response time? Can it keep the plant operating more efficiently? So it's a balancing act. It's a risk. You have to take the risks in consideration. I think we're early in this game, real early in this game, and I think we'll have some great case studies maybe in a few years, but not sure we're there quite yet.
Okay, thanks. I guess one more, because you did touch on a few of the things I was going to ask. It was such a informative couple of presentations. But and we have one coming up on the chat box. Okay, let me do chat box first. Operational and safety reliability concerns, so colon, in your experience are clients, organizations, manufacturing sector, and parens using LLMs in place of leveraging ML, which are capable of performing correctional studies in real time, correlation studies, goodness, in real time. Help me out and remind me of the acronyms again. So, using LLMs in place of leveraging ML, which are capable of performing correlation studies. So, help explaining the question and then answering it.
Sure.
Which one? Go ahead,
So,
Chris.
so large language models are really more textual based, right? So they go out, they're reading all these documents, and it's like Bill was mentioning, that whole um, copyright issues because the LLMs are going out there and scrubbing all the websites, pulling all the data back and reading the websites and providing that information. Whereas the ML is the machine learning piece where they're taking data sets that are provided by a system to be able to sit there and make the determinations or correlations. So what I'm seeing a lot of, especially with the ML side of things, is that a lot of organizations from the operational and safety part of this is that they're looking at, okay, determining based on ML when they're going to have a safety issue, trying to say 30 days out that motor is going to fail. They're able to sit there and look at all of that data in a much faster and much larger aspect than any human could look at, right? We're looking at spreadsheets and we're like, within 30 minutes, our eyes are spinning, our heads, lost in the clouds, and we're looking for something else to do. And that's where all the ML comes in with the numbers and the data. But with the large language model, again, it all comes back with how large language models work. So you ask a question, what is cybersecurity? To LLM, and LLM will go out and find all the words referencing or related to cybersecurity and bring it all back together and based on all the different sources of information, developing a textual response to what an LLM is, or to what your question is, and that's how an LLM works. So I don't see LLMs being used more in the operational and safety component, but Bill, you?
No, I think that's right from what I can see.
Okay, here's the last question. This one's for me. It's philosophical in nature. For organizations with limited resources, I'd say smaller organizations, where should leaders prioritize their first investments in cybersecurity to get the most immediate risk reduction? I get a feeling that, that horse already left the gate, but either way, what should the priorities be?
Basic cyber hygiene. Again, CIS is a really good source. They have a lot of information that encompasses what basic cyber hygiene is. It could be ensuring that you have antivirus on your computers. We're seeing more companies, like for example, and I'm not giving any plugs here. I'm not not sponsored or anything like that, but for example, if your company or your organization is a Costco member, you can get free CrowdStrike. And CrowdStrike is one of the top um, antivirus programs that are out there, and you could get it for free. Right. So there's a lot of budget-friendly capabilities out there. Another one is vulnerability management. Your computers are only as strong as the weakest vulnerability that you have in your system. And so your computers are updating, or your operating systems and your software gets updated at least once a month if you're using Windows, and Apple, Mac OS gets updated at least once a month to address those vulnerabilities. Ensuring that you're doing that vulnerability management is key. There's software out there that's free that lets you manage all that. You can get like another one that I recommend to my clients for the small businesses is Action One. And you can get up to 200 computers managed by their software for free, which will push all of the updates to the computer. So you have one centralized location to manage all that. So again, I'm not I put it out there because that is why I see my clients are using. That's what I personally use, and I'm not getting paid for any of it. So there's no, whatever the Amazon thing or whatever is. No, I'm not getting anything out of this. It's just, there's budget-friendly ways, is what my point is, of being able to do some of these things that are basic cyber hygiene.
Excellent. Well, Bill and Chris, this has been such an informative session. I'm glad that we're recording it. For those of you on the call, we will be packaging this, if you will. Oh, look, you're getting claps. Uh, and I can clap like this. So you'll be getting the recording of this presentation, but it's been great. I have learned so much. So thank you. I want to thank the folks who joined us today. We appreciate you. This is why ECMA provides webinars to its members and partners. So thank you for participating. I want to make you aware of our next webinar, which is June 8th at 10 a.m. This will be the hurricane forecast from Jeff Lindner. We have had him before, and he really gives some excellent information to help us get prepared. He's with Harris County Flood Control District. So keep a look at, or keep your eye out for your inbox and your notices, and stay tuned. Thank you again. And again, thank you to our speakers. We appreciate you. Have a
Thank you.
good day.
You.